Before we begin, a little warning. This episode contains explicit language, sexual content, and references to drug use. On this episode, we're joined by Anika, who places her story in the time capsule. This story will be aired in 2 parts. You are now tuned in to the Story Time Capsule.
So I just want to say thank you for having this and for opening the space for people to do this. I think it's beautiful. I feel humbled and I feel grateful. And I don't think that my story is very different. You know, maybe something that you've already heard before. But I think it's an important story, like for people to keep in mind when they live their life or interact with people. I think that I've learned a lot about people. I've learned a lot about myself. Obviously, I'm 31 years old, going to be 32 this July. And so sometimes I feel like I don't want to be cliche and say 1,000 lies, but at least 50. Like, it's just like, it feels like that way. I grew up here. I was born in Pasadena. Both of I'm first generation here in LA and in this country, really. My parents are my dad's originally from India, and my mom's originally from a little island off the coast of Madagascar, which was a French province. So my dad from India, my mom from this little French province, but she is of Indian descent. Actually, her great grandmother was a stowaway slave from India during the British rule. So like she's fourth generation out of India, but she's Indian. I think she always struggled with identity, which is funny because I struggle with identity here being first generation in this country. And then, I also had parents that, although they were from the country India, I mean, my mother was from the South. She's very dark. My father's from the North. He's very light. They wouldn't have spoken the same languages, but my mother doesn't even speak any Indian language. Her first language is French. So it's like she was searching so hard for an identity. And I remember her telling me this at a very early age. The only reason why I married your father was because he was tall and light skinned. It's like I didn't want my kids to be short and dark. And I mean, it's funny because in like Indian families, there's always like a playful competition between the north and south of India, but other people wouldn't see that as playful. And sometimes I'm like, Dad, you can't say that to anybody that's like not in our family because like it's really not, and then you never know when mom's had a rough day. So can you just chill? Like, you know what I'm saying? Can you just chill? And so in my household, even though they were both Indian, their cultures never really intersected. I mean, my father was a Sikh, my mother was a Hindu. When my parents met, they met in England. They both went to school in England. They both met in college. They met at 18. And, my story has a lot to do with my parents, I think, because although I really, like, to me, a home is like everything. Like when I can make someone feel comfortable and loved and fed and happy and warm, it's like that to me is everything. I'm not going to say it's because I'm a Cancer, but yeah, exactly. Well, that explains everything. And it's like, but it has to do, so I think looking back at it now, I really think that I derive a lot of like who I am from being that type of way. And so when their story is funny, they met when they were 18 and they wanted to get married. And for one reason or another, my dad would fall off like, oh, my parents don't approve of you. Oh, this and that. Oh, this and that. And she would say, okay. Then she would move to like a different country. She was a nurse, and she like, it was like one of those programs where the British were like funding nurses to come from these different places because they were like had a shortage of nurses. And so like then she went to Saudi Arabia, and he was like, no, no, no. And then she was like, well, this pilot asked me to marry him. He was like, no, 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 wait, I like you, I love you. Then it was like 2 months of that, of writing letters, I guess, back then. And then it was like, then he'd send her a gift and whatever. And anyways, this went on until she was about 29.
Wow.
And then they decided to move to LA. And my dad got a job. He's an acoustics consultant. He's a nuclear physicist by trade. So you can imagine that. You can do what you want with that information. Yeah, so he got he did a lot of research for NASA at Purdue. He taught at Purdue for a while. And he came out to LA. I don't know why they wanted to come out to LA. I really have no idea. Except my mother told me once, like, when she was like a little kid on the island, that I think his name is Henry Kissinger. Mm-hmm. That he had said, someone had asked him in an interview, where's your favorite place in the whole world? And he would always say, oh, Southern California, or like Los Angeles. And so it was like always her dream, like from being on an island to move to this place she's never heard of, but like, and she got what, she manifested that, and they both moved to LA. They got a tiny apartment, and my mom was like, listen, I want to have kids. So like, we got to have kids, or, and, my grandparents, my mother's father died when she was very young. So, and she had always, her family had no means of coming really for a wedding, but my dad's parents came and literally just tried to like split them up for 8 months. And one day my dad just like had enough and took my mother to the courthouse and married her, and they had Mexican food, and he dropped her off at her hotel, not her hotel. They were in an apartment at the time, but they had bought a house. So his family and him were staying at this house, and my mom was still staying in their old apartment. And they had Mexican food and dropped her off, and he went back to his parents, or back to the house, and was like, listen, I married her already, so I don't know. There's nothing else that can be done. And it is a romantic story. But I guess my grandparents did not want to leave. My mother found herself like 6 months pregnant, still living in this apartment. And finally, my dad was like, you have to go. And my grandparents didn't talk to my parents for 8 years after that. So I think, then everyone's at home. Now they're in this house. They're in this house that they bought. My mother apparently put down the down payment. My dad's parents gave him the rest of the money, but that story always changes as to whose fault the fight was about, And so it was hard. I mean, I think it was hard for my dad to give up his family. I think it was hard for my mom because she didn't have family. She had no roots. Four generations of no roots. And literally she was living in poverty, like it wasn't like, oh, okay. Like my dad's parents have land in India, and they were farmers. And yes, my grandfather, my dad's father, he was a lawyer, and, he would have to wait for the cauliflower crop to go up for, in order to practice law in India, you have to have a suit. And he had graduated and he couldn't afford a suit. So they had to wait for the cauliflower to come up to like buy the suit, and, but that's not compared to the poverty my mother lived in, which is like 6 siblings and like a mother, taxi driver, father, but like her mother was always there for her. My mother, all she wanted in her whole life was a cute little cuddly family where she felt safe and, where she felt loved and wanted. And I think that's, to me, growing up as a daughter and like having to show up for that is hard. But now, like as a woman, it's hard because number one, you see that that someone's life, literally they endured a life like that without like the love, and like every skin needs touch, and I mean, I can hug my mom all day. It's not the touch that, we're talking about here. And I just, part of me aches so much for that. And I think a lot of my struggle, like a lot of what I feel with them now is like, listen, I can't fulfill this space. Like Dad, I am not your parents. Mom, I am not your husband. Like, and it was so, it's just interesting putting those words now to what maybe, I felt then. So then again, right, you have two Indians. Neither Indian speaks the same, like local language or home, like mother tongue. Like they don't have the same mothers. They have different mothers. So like the only thing they spoke was English to each other. And I always had, and my mother taught herself Spanish. She was working in Silmar in a hospital, so she self-taught herself Spanish. She was a nurse. She was a OBGYN nurse, and then so we always had like a nanny. We had one specific nanny, Maria, who literally raised us from when I was 6 to like did not leave my parents until I was about 25. And it's really something she feels terrible about. And like at that time, right? My mom was a nurse. My dad is working at this acoustics consulting firm. They both have this idea that they're not going to make money making money for other people. And so my dad decides to leave his firm, and my mother decides to like stop practicing nursing. And they start these two companies, which is also quite important. Start these two companies. My mother she took a couple courses on case management, and she starts like becoming a case management consultant, and she like would go to hospitals and teach them how to manage cases more effectively. So she would sell these courses. And they had a mail room. We were like collating papers at 5. Our treat was in and out. And go to the office on Saturday, and it was just like. And my father built his own acoustics consulting firm, and he started. He has like we have now like 50 people, 3 offices, with other employees, and he started his firm with 3 people, and that is kind of the crux of it. My mom had to travel, and like there's only so many hospitals in LA. So they marketed she marketed her work all over the country, and that's what it was. She was gone from Sunday night to Friday night. So you pick up mom on Friday night, and the parents would take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese, and they'd drink beer, and we'd get lost in those scary playthings, and that was kind of it. Mom leaves on Sunday night. She comes back on Friday night. And I remember I used to tell my sister, Sammy, only 2 more days, like, because she was so little, and I was just like, okay, I only have one little sister. And it's just, so she wasn't there. Now, if she had continued nursing, she probably would have been there. I think she somewhat blames, there's always some kind of blame happening with them. And it's just like, it's always a little, it's someone else's fault, but not entirely someone else's fault. But there's, if I had made some other decision, but it's funny because if you would ask me this question, I would say a year and a half ago, I would tell you something different than what I'm going to say today, which is I I've never seen them love each other more than I've seen them love each other now. And it's not like that warm, fuzzy feeling love. It's like that I'm devoted to this person. Like, I wouldn't even say my body's devoted to this person because I wouldn't trust my dad. But, and you know what? That's who he is. What can I say? I mean, my mom's making a decision, but it's like literally they will always have each other's, like, they will make sure each other is still breathing in the morning, you know? I mean, like, that's kind of that very visceral, but like, you know, how meaningful is it? You know, I don't know. I don't know what you would choose. I don't know what anyone would choose. I certainly don't want that. I don't want to have to choose it. I don't definitely want to be away from that, you know? So, I come from this place where although they connected on their differences, I think I find that in people too. I think I love seeing people's differences. I love seeing how different they are. I love like noticing the things that other people can do that I feel not that I like something maybe that I can't do, but it's not really like kind of the lamenting of it. It's like, wow, like look at the spectrum of like human ability. To me, it's like, you know, I can't even believe what else is out there. And sometimes I think, oh my God, Anika, you shouldn't have done that many drugs in college. And, you know, and it's just like, but I mean, I'm here and that's it. So, you know, so I come from this place where they weren't comfortable. They weren't comfortable being themselves. They didn't even know if they didn't want to be there. They weren't even there. They were half there, not there. None of them had the same like cultural identity. None of them had like both of them didn't have the same values. Both of them, and it was beautiful because now I have a choice in what I believe. You know, like we weren't a household of like you must believe, you must. It was more of like, okay, well if you like that, then do that. If you like that, then do that. Okay, well as long as you can like give me a logical reason as to why you're doing that, like you can do it. And or logical, or even if you want to pursue it. And I think they probably at that time they probably like, God, these kids. But I think now they probably really appreciate that because me and my sister are very kind of, we believe what we believe and like that's just what we do, and that's, you know, and my parents, I'm grateful that they gave me the space for that. And so I grow up and it was difficult. I mean, I'm an Indian girl, first generation. You know, my mother is, you know, she buys her clothes at like thrift stores, which I love, you know, but the other kids at the private school they had to have us go to were not there, was not wearing this, like, you know, the wall, like, you know, I developed very quickly. And so I just feel like a lot of my mother's clothes I would wear to school. And I wish, like, I wish I had, I mean, I can't wish. It's not that I wish, like, I am who I am. But looking back now, I think it's like, I would have loved, if I ever have to put my child through that, is what I'm saying. I think I would tell her, listen, I'm giving this to you with all of my love. This is all I can give you, all I know how to give you. And as soon as we figure out a different way, we will, but be proud of what you're wearing now, you know? And I don't even think my parents were proud of what they were wearing because in that time, I mean, as immigrants, they were also dealing with probably a lot of issues on the business front, starting their businesses and having to work with people. My mom going to these, you know, states in the United States where they're like, wow, honey, we've never seen anyone like you. I'm not trying, the accent was not meant to happen. The accent was not, the accent was actually not a thing. It was just, I was just doing a different voice other than myself. I'm practicing my monologues. And so, so like, okay. Oh God, I hope we all forget that. And I just I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, and my mother loves America. My mother loves this country. She loves people. She believes in like helping everybody. She believes, like she is the one on if you don't vote, you don't eat kind of person. Like, you know what I'm saying? And she's just like so into, like she loves this country, and my dad also loves this country. But, I think, but, my mother just has like a passion about it. And so she loves politics and things like that. And so, but yeah, so I come from like a home where like no one knew who they were. And I guess like when you're a parent, okay, I don't know who I am. If I had a baby right now, I would still be figuring, no one finishes knowing who they are. And like, I completely get that, but it was just difficult, like not knowing who I was even to them or like what I was supposed, like it almost felt like everyone had a function. Everyone had a function. Mom has to go to work during this time. Dad has to go to work at this time. Maria gives us breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and dries our eyes and things like that. And Sammy and I would go to school, and we have to get A's. Like everyone has a function, and in a way, that like shaped my whole life. That idea of everybody has a function shaped my entire life. And I think that that's what's important to say here, because I think a lot of people could fall into that. Not fall in, but they assume that. They assume that that's what their parents say. That's probably not what my parents meant, but that's what they're assuming. And so then you assume your function. You fall in line, and who fucking cares what you think? No one cares. No one cares what you think. You must do what you are told. You have to eat the 3 almonds. You have to braid your hair. You can't wear nail polish. You, okay, I understand you got straight A's, but if you're fat, no one's going to take you seriously. Like those things, you start to realize, you grow into this function and you don't know yourself. And that's, I don't know. Because the reason why I'm tearing up now is because there's so many sacrifices that like immigrants make, or even people in other countries make, that I'm not aware of, that, I can't speak to. I can only speak to, my parents. And looking back now, like, I mean, they had it hard too. I'm not angry. I want to tell this story because I want to say that people need to, kids or young adults, they should understand that, yes, there might be a sense of I must fall in line. I've got to do this. Like my parents worked their ass off for what they have now, and I have to do this but don't assume that that's what your parents are thinking. Don't assume that. And if what you're thinking truly doesn't, like, if it truly has nothing, if you falling in line means you literally lose yourself, I think that's the greatest sadness, because at the end of the day, we have parents that love us. We have, pets that love us. But if like the most important thing is to find your voice. If you can't use that, if you can't find that, it becomes very difficult when you're older to find it. So, always remember, when someone else other than yourself is imposing something upon you, whether it be an opinion, a judgment, it's literally not about you. It is not about you. It is not about you. It's just like, it's just not about you. It's about them. It's about everyone walks around in the lenses that they've created based on like what they've seen. So just give yourself, like, take a breath. And if something does not feel right, then you know what, there's ways. And it's hard. There's places where it's more difficult than others. And I feel blessed to be where I am at. And, but I just ask you, just kind of ponder that for yourself. So it becomes this idea of like, okay, Anika, okay, Dad, done with 8th grade. Okay, Dad, I'm done with high school. Okay, Dad, I'll do that major. I'll study environmental science if you think that that's the next big thing. Okay, I guess I like chemistry. I guess I like biology. I guess I like physics. I mean, who fucking cares what it is? I guess I like it. I guess. And that just turns into, okay, Dad, you want to marry me off at 21? Okay, sure. I guess he's cute. Okay, Dad, you want me to lose weight? Okay, sure. I guess that's fine. And you truly become not like it's just, you're gone. You're gone. You're literally gone. You don't know, but you operate. You fulfill your function. The ability of human beings to normalize any shitty situation is like amazing to me as well. It's just like, okay, that's normal. It's so normal that I'm just like, oh, using caffeine to like lose weight. Oh, well, now it's cocaine to lose weight. And then now it's this and that to do whatever, to stay awake, to go to sleep, and this is like not when weed was legal. This is this is not when it was legal. This was when it was not legal. And so it's just, yeah, I was a great student. I mean, I learned to enjoy like learning about the world around me and like the mechanism of it. I think I really got to lose, like I shed what I was. I just started measuring myself with what I knew. And that is also dangerous, but it became something like, okay, well, in this area of my life, I'm doing well, so it should be okay. But I fell into, then it starts coming into, okay, how do I value myself when I'm, now at this age where I want to have a partner, and I think it's really vital for people to understand too. It's like, if you can't at least know that you are separate from people, like, you don't have to know yourself. You don't have to love yourself 100%. You don't have to be perfect to like have somebody that will love you, but you have to understand that you are you and they are them. Like, and that's something I'm still learning today. But I think then what starts happening is this, like, I'm a young lady, probably like at my prime and like all cute and whatever, and like getting attention from guys I've never gotten before, because I'm sure people in high school flirted with me, but I had no fucking clue. I had no clue. Did Fred really want to study Spanish? I don't fucking know, dude. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. And so anyways, you get that, then you get into, and this is where I feel like the story doesn't get boring, but it's more of like, it's something maybe people will be able to identify with and maybe might feel redundant for people. But, I just to like, be true to my story, attention from guys, equating, sexual attraction to love, and that is so wrong. Like, not wrong. Obviously, sex is fun. You need to have sex. The thing is it's like, it's not just your body somebody falls in love with. It's so much more than that. And like, you deserve to be witnessed. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be hugged. And you don't have to give your body to that, for that, to anyone. And when you're meant to fulfill a function, relationships become a function. They become like this thing. I have to keep somebody entertained to stay with me enough to, fulfill my duty of getting married. And then no one stays because of the sex, okay? Doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how good you are. Trust me. Trust me. Yeah. Trust me. It's like, doesn't matter how much you study. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just like, they don't stay because of that. I remember the guy I lost my virginity to. I full on thought, like, in my little 19-year-old brain, thought, oh my God, like this guy's gonna be my first boyfriend, and I lost my virginity on a green couch, and 5 weeks later, he's like bringing some other girl to this party, and I'm like, what the hell, Jacob? And he's just like, well, she likes the same music I do. And I mean, although I carried that around for a long time, and I really had a lot of like
I love Green Day.
You're like, but I love your shitty music too. And it's just like, but it's like I carried that around for a long time, but it was like, it's like such a just fundamental thing. It's just like, you need way more than sex to. And I remember towards the end of us hooking up, it was a lot of like, I'm sorry if this is explicit, but a lot of him getting off and him finishing and not me. And he was getting like pretty concerned about that. And I think he was probably wondering, I mean, I don't know what he was wondering, but what I sometimes think is, if somebody doesn't think you're enjoying yourself when you're with them, why are you with them? Like that's what they're thinking. Why are you here if you're not even, getting what I'm getting from this? You're getting something else that I'm not even giving. Like, I don't get that. And I think that's what something, again, I'm still working with. But it's definitely, I don't know. It's just like, I look back at that and I remember, and I just feel like, okay, well, it is what it is. Goodbye. But that was really hard. And then, and that's just when I started using a lot of drugs. Like, I just used anything and everything. I eventually had a 3-year love affair with heroin. And I mean, that's when just it all falls apart at that point. At that point, all of the rules that you've ever set for yourself have been broken. Your body is not really yours. Your education's not really yours. Your everything's just not yours. Just not. And so who fucking cares? Literally, I remember towards the end of the addiction, it was like, okay, well, if I literally contemplated to myself, I could die. Like, that's just it. I could die, and it's either I die or I face the fact that I have to throw up bile for 2 weeks and then like get clean, And I pretty much chose death every other time. And but at that time my father was having an affair on my mother. So it was very much like no one everyone was functioning as these cogs in a machine, and then all of a sudden no one fucking cared about each other, but we were still expected to like get married, get A's, blah blah blah. It's like, okay. Mother was like worried about dad. Dad was hooking up with this girl for 8 years and at the Holiday Inn, checking mail apparently. And it's just like, it just becomes this thing where, okay, like, you know, you get a, I'm not going to call him a shitty boyfriend. I'm just going to say you get a companion to do your drugs with. You find the money to buy the drugs, and then you do the drugs. That's literally your only goal in the day. That's your only task in the day. That's your only worry in the day. That's because your body literally can't live without it. And tomorrow, you promise you'll get clean. Tomorrow will be it. Tomorrow, it's happening. I'm young enough. I can do this. Tomorrow, it's happening. And then eventually, actually, I'm either going to get caught or I'll die. So I guess I'm waiting on the day I'll get caught, and then maybe I won't die. But I obviously don't want to get caught. But, you know, anyways, everyone does get caught in the end. Or, you know, a lot of people I know have died, and that's really sad. But eventually my mother put the same private investigator she put on my father to find out he was cheating on her. She put him on me. And they followed me for one day. And it was probably the worst day you could have followed me. It was probably the worst way. The worst day. It was just the worst day. I had gone from Riverside to San Pedro, back to Riverside, to Whittier, all in one day. And my Audi, like the coolant was fucked up. It was just like, it was a damn mess. And that's when my mother was like, come home, I'm sick. And I was just like, dude, no. Sorry, Oscar. I'm probably going to go to rehab today because this is like, I don't, you know, cancers were very intuitive and psychic. And at that point I knew, okay, guess I got to go get clean. You know, like I'm in trouble. Mom's not sick. You know, mom's not sick. Like, what's sick? Okay. We don't call each other when we're sick. What are you fucking kidding? You know? And so I get there. Hey, Anika, gotta go rehab. Like, I saw you do this. I'm like, okay. At that point, do you know what made me go to rehab? I didn't need an intervention. I didn't need any of that. I was so fucking embarrassed. Like, for some reason, that conversation with my mother was embarrassing. Like, at that point, I was like, okay, I'm embarrassed. Like, who the fuck, like, really? Like, this, really? Like, and I wasn't even like, oh, I can't believe I did it to my parents. I'm just like, oh my God. And I think shame has actually been I've had a very, like, funny relationship with shame. I think sometimes she comes into my life when I need to, like, you know, figure my shit out. Sometimes she's a little too strong, but it's like, I just felt like, oh God, like, really, I can't do this. This is not sustainable. This is not okay. It's just not okay, you know? I mean, and, you know, my teeth were black. My eyes were yellow. My clothes were disgusting. My car was a wreck. Like, my school was just fucking, I had gotten there was a private investigator came to my door one day dressed as a plumber. I literally thought it was a plumber. I opened the door and they walk in and they literally think I am like the drug dealer, the queen of Riverside, selling heroin to everybody. And I was just like, literally, you know what?
I don't share my heroin.
Number one, I don't share my heroin. Number two, it's funny. It's funny that my really beautiful friend, fell asleep high as fuck in her car in a parking lot, and she gave you my name, and I'm literally a student at this school, And you thought I was the drug dealer of Riverside. They came in with 6 undercover cops, and they said that if I didn't tell them where the drugs were, that they were going to get the dogs. They had no warrant, but it was my fucking never open your door if they don't have a warrant. Please, please. But anyways, I had to go to court. I had to do all that. And so by the time my mom found out, I was like, well, I actually do have to fulfill this for the court. So I guess perfect timing, divine timing. And so I just seriously, that's it's, and so I go to rehab. I go to Santa Cruz. I think it was the best idea was to get out of town. And, I detoxed a little bit at my mom's house. And I remember another powerful thing she said to me, which I'll never forget, is, Anika, and my mother is a Pisces. She is very spiritual, very psychic, very believing that there is a guardian angel over people, doesn't believe in coincidences, but she literally one day I was puking bile and she was like, listen, you literally look like you're dead. And I want to tell you right now, as much as I think I believe in God and think I believe in shit, I don't fucking know what happens when you die. I don't know where you're gonna go. But I know, even if you come back, even if you go somewhere, you're never gonna be you. So is this it? And I literally was like, fuck, for my mom to be saying this, it's just, I was like, okay, you're right. I don't know where I'm going to go. And if I go anywhere, I'm not going to be me. And don't I want something else? I don't even know what I want, but do I want this? Is this how I want it? And so I go to this rehab, and it's just, it's a great rehab. I mean, I get clean. They really believe in detox. It's actually a Scientology. It was a Scientology rehab that my mom didn't even know was associated with Scientology, but it ended up being, it was good. It was fine. It healed my body. And then I stayed there for 6 months. And what the biggest thing I learned from there was responsibility. At that point, after that program, I realized I am the only one responsible for my happiness. My parents think they know what's good for me. The world thinks they know what's good for me. But I can't keep going around my life saying, oh, I did this because of that. I did this because of that. I was shitty because of that. I said this because of that. I'm not that kind of person. I never want to be. How can I change anything if I live in that space? So the biggest thing, and what I want to also tell addicts, is you do have the power. No matter what listen, I don't know your circumstance. I know it might be ugly. I know it might be dark and deep, and it doesn't look like literally flip a coin every day. I know that it could be like that. But at the end of the day, it might not even be that it's someone else's. It might not even be that it's someone else's fault. It might just be that there's no one else that's going to save you. That's what you need to know. And that you won't come back the way you are now. And there are things to explore. And I'm not saying that being clean is fun and giddy. All addicts know. The minute they put whatever they have in their hands down, whatever they have down, it's that's when everything comes flooding in. But it only comes flooding in for 3 months. And after 3 months or so, then you can start it's not just a clusterfuck. It starts to organize itself. And you can look at it thing by thing. And you can find places, where you're not okay with certain things, or where you are, where you're like, okay, the biggest part of my program that changed my life, literally, I had stashed about like 2 grams of heroin in like a dress in one of my like clothes at home. And I waited for like 2 months before I told my mother. She literally threw all of my clothes away. She's like, you have no more clothes. They're all gone. I don't know. They're just gone. And I was like, okay. I mean, if I was my mother, I would do the same. I'd be like, I can't trust her. I don't know how many holes there are and things. Like, and she's like, buy you new ones. I was like, it's fine. I don't care. But I told her, I said, listen, Mom, I have to tell you something. Like this happened. I have this hidden. And the reason why is like, that's when I was like ready. Like, that's when I was like, okay, no. You're not just like putting up a front right now to like try to get through this program, then get home. Because as addicts, we all know that's what these 30-day detoxes do. That's what these 60-day detoxes do. That's what all these things, we're just like, okay, count down the time. Like literally, I completely hear you. I hear you. Because, I wish I could tell you, like, there's like the best way to get clean. But it's all shitty. It's all shitty until like it's not comfortable. I'm not saying it's shitty. I'm saying it's like it's just not comfortable. But like life isn't comfortable. Are you comfortable when you have to wait 4 hours before you can pick up again? No. Like, but you go through that. Why don't you just maybe try to be in a safe space where you're like loved and fed and and your family, is loved and fed, and, maybe, you're in a safe space where you can maybe like explore these things, even if it's not like in a rehab, like even if it's your AA meetings, even if it's your like groups that you go to, make that your promise. Even if like you still, and even if you fall off the wagon, go back, just go back. Like, there's so much love for you. There's so much belief in you. There's so much I would want to learn about you. There's so much that people want to witness of you that it's just like, I just ask you to like, just go back. Just go back. And then you eventually get to a point where, okay, now I'm off these drugs. I've taken responsibility. Okay, I was a shitty person to this person, this person, this person. It was like this whole part of our program where we had to go through these like different areas in our life, and we kind of took responsibilities for the things that went wrong. So our life was separated by dynamics. I hear it's kind of like the sixth step in AA.
Yeah.
And so, except we don't have to make amends. We're just mainly we make amends at some point, but only to like family or, not really kind of anyone else. Like, it's people that we have to deal with again. We're mainly asked to consider like cutting people off, which is fine. I had like 2 friends, so it's like whatever. Yeah. I had 2 friends, so we're good. And then obviously the guy I lost my virginity to, who wasn't talking to me anyways. And I realized the step that made me really realize was when the stuff I had done to my family. So, I have a little sister, I have my parents, and I think like then was when I started realizing like, you know what, like we're all struggling. And I don't want to be remembered as the sister who did this, the daughter that did this. And it's not, that might be a little ego-ish. But it was more of just like the core of me really cares about the people who have fed me, the people who have housed me, the people who have done that. And I think because that's just that's like very kind of like fundamental to life, is like who feeds you, who waters you, who gives you this, who gives you that. And I mean, even though they weren't there for me, they gave me those things. They gave me the means to live, and they gave me an opportunity by like having me go to this rehab. I kind of was like, okay, now I'm ready. Like, I will not dance with heroin again. She is the bitch that never fucking calls me back. She like never texts me back. She will always be the most beautiful person in the room. And I can't fuck with her anymore. Like, I've learned my lesson. I will get burned. There's nothing I don't want to do. And so since then, I would say since 2013, I've never once taken an opiate. It's now 2022. So it's been great. Honestly, I don't know what happened. I just know that day whatever day it was, I told my mom I had that in my dress. I have not been struck with the need or want to ingest any type of opiate. Like, that's just not what I want, just not what I need. I don't know. I really have no idea, because there's a lot of things in my life that I wish left that easily. But I mean, it took work, you know. It wasn't easy, but it just but it happened, and that's why it can happen. I need you to know it can happen. And I know, and the reason why I think I started with like my story might not be different is because, you know, like a lot of people who are using right now, they have a lot of things going on. And I just want you to know that although my story sounds like, it might sound, oh, you know, she was gone to school and da-da-da, and then she like got into drugs, and then it was a lot. I also dealt with a lot of kind of who, like, literally feeling like I'm meat. So I think we can all fundamentally agree with that. And I remember early on in one of my rehabs, it was like, or not one of my rehabs, but the detox center I went to before I went to this main place. Someone was like, you know, everyone's all, you know, telling their stories, because that's what everyone loves doing when they first get there. And I remember someone saying, like, don't diminish yourself because you don't think your story is as painful as others. Your story is just as valid, just as painful, and it deserves to be heard and witnessed. And I just want you to know that, like, people who make you feel like that, they haven't heard enough. They are not hurt. They haven't hit their rock bottom. Remember what I said in the beginning, other people saying something to you, it has to do with them, not you. And like, your story is just as true, just as beautiful, just as painful, just as valid. And I would understand why you had to turn to drugs. I would get it. And I would have no problem getting it, because so it doesn't matter if it's as simple as, oh, I tried it at a party, did it for 3 days, and then I started throwing up, and then, oh yeah, did it again, stop throwing up. Even if that's your story, that's enough. And you're beautiful, and you don't have to be a slave to a chemical reaction in your brain. You don't.
On our next episode, part 2 of Anika's story. At Story Time Capsule, we want to hear everyone's story. This space is for you to tell your story in whatever way you choose, through conversation or creative writing, maybe even by sharing a recipe. If you would like to sign up to share your story on the podcast, you can visit our website at storytimecapsule.com or follow the link in our Instagram bio @StorytimeCapsulePodcast.